So, good morning. This is an early one for me. So it's all about knowing our place in history, and would you appreciate that the path becomes a lot clearer. So this is the age when tyranny comes to an end, and it comes to an end because of the West, because of liberal democracy. And I'm going to explain exactly why this is the case. So tyranny is the rule of the few over the many for their agenda. It looks like communism, theocracy, military dictatorship, foreign rule, and a few other forms of it. And it just leads to mass poverty and oppression of the people. And the only system that is free from tyranny is the West, is liberal democracy, because of their, tyrannical constitutions, because of what's been put in place to prevent that. And so why does it matter? Like if freedom, because that's what it is, the West they're the only free countries, liberal democracies, except for two, which are more interesting, Japan and Taiwan, but basically the West. You say, well, if it is so great, if freedom as opposed to tyranny is so great, well, surely we can see that, and we can, absolutely. No place is better when liberal democracy is running for the rights and of children, of women, of people, of prosperity, of progress. But let's just break it down to something much simpler. When we look at liberal democracies, we're talking about around 7% of the world's population. We're talking about roughly 25 countries out of about 200. So it's pretty small. It's small now, but it must spread, and all these countries must be freed from tyranny. Because let's just take one example. So if we're to look at the average rates of poverty in the West, in the developed world, in these countries, it's between 1% to 4%. And if we look at the average rates of poverty in the countries run by some form of tyranny, it's about 44%. Some countries it's 70%. That's just one statistic. So if we want to free the world from poverty, we need to free it from tyranny. And the only path to that is liberal democracy and all of its beautiful tenets. And, it is far from a perfect system, but it is unbelievably better than tyranny. And it is a system that is working on itself. We got some significant upgrades and some vulnerabilities to work on, and we need to embrace those. And that's the beauty of it, isn't it? That's the beauty of the freedom of liberal democracies. So this is the path. This is our time. This is the age when tyranny comes to an end. And let's talk about another thing. We all appreciate world citizenship is just obviously the future. But let's break that down. The only place you experience citizenship is in a liberal democracy. You are a citizen, you have rights and you have responsibilities. That's how the system works. That's liberal democracy. All these other systems, communism, theocracy, military dictatorship, foreign rule, and a few others may be in the mix. You are not a citizen of the state. You are a subject of the state. Your job is to do what you're told. You're a subject of the state. So how can you be in a nation where you experience life, live through this reality of being a subject of the state, and somehow be able to embrace global citizenship? It just doesn't make any sense. So the path to citizenship, to global citizenship, to resolving so many problems in the world is that liberal democracy must just become the norm. And how do you do it? Well, I think there's actually lots of practical things we can do to achieve it. I think a lot of it is just education, just to explain to people, the West is doing so well. You want what we have, embrace liberal democracy. Not to the tyrants, not to the few who are in control. They've got their own stuff going on, full of narcissism and psychopathy. But to the people, educate the people. You want this? Okay. You need to fight for this. You need to fight to become free. Freedom from your oppressors, freedom from this tyranny. That's one of them. I think the West has to wake up and realize what it is, realize its place in history. And it has to, educate our children about how wonderful liberal democracy is, how brilliant this system is, and that the challenge is there is to maintain it, to uphold it, to do the things that protect it. And there's lots of specific things that protect it. We can break those down in another video. They're fairly straightforward. And really just say how wonderful it is, how blessed we are. Look at how fortunate we are, the freedoms and the rights and the prosperity that we have. And there's some things to work on. So let's break it down. What are some of the things that that we must uphold? Obviously, we must vote. We must take great interest in who we vote and their characters and their competencies. We must obviously be very proud that we are the free world, this 8% of the world that is free now, and that the rest of the world needs to follow this path to escape tyranny. We need to obviously free speech, and for example, we could list the other tenets of it. And so then we could think of what are some of the vulnerabilities we need to fight for. Well, so equality is a terrible, vile, evil thing. Obviously, I think a lot of these totalitarian states like this idea of equality. You're all equal. You're just all subjects. You're all oppressed. It's just a vile way to. It's an ungodly concept of this thing of everybody being equal. Equal opportunity, equal rights, certainly. But equal outcomes is just a sickness of totalitarian systems. So equality in that sense is terrible. The thing that needs to be resolved is the extremes of wealth and poverty. Just need to be moderated. Extremes of poverty need to be moderated for obvious reasons. Extremes of wealth need to be moderated because extremes of wealth is just another form of tyranny. It's just very few people governing, controlling everything. And obviously some degree world federated government needs to occur, but for that to occur, we need to all grow as nations. You could break that down some more as well. So basically, I think the key is we need to know our place in history. This is the time when tyranny comes to an end because of the spread of liberal democracy. And the first thing we're very proud of what we are. We need to embrace it. We have, and need to, those flags, our flags, the flags of liberal democracy nations, we need to fly those high and say nobody messes with this. To protect us, to protect our children. Look at liberal democracies tend to be high trust. They are high trust compared to tyrannies that are low trust societies, and they tend to be. Anyway, you can see all the benefits. It's crazy. We just need a few upgrades for them, but we need to wake up and realize the West is what the world needs, and of course, tyranny wants more. It sees we're free. It says, okay, we can start developing communism here. We can start developing theocracy. We can embrace foreign rule. All of these forms of tyranny want to constantly putting pressure, trying to take over the West. And that's why we need to uphold the tenets of liberal democracy and be strong. Because, even though the West are the best nations in the world, it doesn't really matter because it is weak nations that fall. And we need to be strong nations. And this is just the path ahead of us now. And we need to wake up and rise because tyranny is coming for us. And what needs to happen is this needs to be age where tyranny comes to the end because the people of the world wake up and say, wow, this theocracy, communism, foreign rule, these are awful things. They only create oppression. They only create poverty for the masses. It's just allowing a bunch of narcissistic psychopaths to govern over things, which is their desire, their compulsion. So let's become conscious. Let's become aware. And then there's so much, and once you're aware, then, there's so much we can do as individuals, as when we get together collectively, and we can just reject anything that is tyranny and embrace the tenets of liberal democracy and really have some meaningful discussions about some of the upgrades that we need to do and some of the vulnerabilities and realize the solution for the world, for world citizenship, for world peace is for liberal democracy to spread, because liberal democracies don't tend to go around warring and having wars with each other. Just because why? Because the masses of the people just don't want that. Because here's why liberal democracy works. The first thing is there's always a small group of people, a small percentage of the population that are psychopaths. They're very narcissistic and they just want all the power and control. And in tyranny, they get that and they just obsess over it. But the truth is that the vast majority of people want to live good, meaningful lives. And they want other people. They're altruistic. They want other people to live good, meaningful lives as well. That's the vast majority of people. And so in liberal democracy, in the freedom from this tyranny, it's kind of free people kind of working to determine themselves and making mistakes and stumbling, but ultimately moving forward because the mass of the people want to live good, meaningful lives, and they want other people to have good lives as well. And that's why liberal democracy works, because it frees that. Whereas tyranny, whatever form you want to take of it, the rule of the few over the many for the agenda of the few, it's just facilitating these narcissistic psychopaths. And they're always there, but in liberal democracies, there's forces moderating them, limiting them, and thereby allowing the will of the people and what they want. And it's a journey. Like this freedom it's a tiny blip in the history of humankind. It's brand new, and we're just figuring it out. And it's wonderful, and the benefits are huge when you compare it to countries where there's tyranny. So I just thought I'd just having my coffee this morning, and just thought I'd throw a few of those ideas out there, because I think it's very important that we wake up. And so in my book I talk about the anti-tyrannical measures that are the foundations of it, and we all know what they are, and we're all happy with them. I also talk about organizational hygiene, how this keeps these monsters at bay, and they're very simple, straightforward practices. But I think becoming conscious of them and more clearly understanding them is the key now, so that we don't just think these are good things. We realize these are essential things to have present in our lives and our organizations. And but we just need to realize, as I said, we need to realize our place in history and how profound this time is.